And for some reason, I don't know why this happens to me. Does it happen to anyone else? Andrea, hello. Phil Chappie, you're in the chat room. I don't know why this happens to me on Tuesday nights, but guaranteed I'm going to lose connection with Spreaker. I mean, it just happens way too often. It's just happened again. I hope I'm back on. Somebody will tell me. I don't know. I just sit here and talk to myself, which is, it's okay until they come to put you in a suit with no arms in them. But hey, we keep going, right? So talking about the games tonight, I want to get into in just a moment, as soon as I can find out if I am on or not. Let's see. Andrea, Phil, Lenny, and Chaplin's in the chat room. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. Chaplin's following me at 7, and that's going to end the fantasy day here on the network. Sound is good. Thank you, Andrea. So we'll keep on keeping on. How about that? I want to look at some players, fantasy players. What about Matt Carpenter? I mean, we've dogged him all year. He's finally heating up. And I look at the lineup tonight for Colorado, and he is nowhere to be. He's nowhere to be found. They're playing in Colorado against a right-hander. Why wouldn't Matt Carpenter be in the lineup? He's been hot of late, 6 for his last 8. They don't play him when he doesn't hit, and they don't play him when he does hit. Am I the only one frustrated with this, or does it even matter? The Cardinals, you would think, want to see him heat up for the playoffs. I mean, my man Chaplin, a great player when he's hitting. It is it's just a disappointing season. But isn't it about time that the Cardinals see that he's hitting, give him a chance? I look at the lineup, he's nowhere to be found. And I'm like, are you kidding me? What's going on in St. Louis? And this guy that's pitching for Colorado tonight, he's got a 7 ERA. A right-hander in Coors Field with a 7 ERA and an 0-6 record. That's just disrespectful to me. I mean, play him tonight. If he doesn't hit, take him out tomorrow. Again, 6 for his last 8. Yet not playing. I am astounded. I thought about picking him up in my daily. I'm in a year-long seasonal league, but you can make daily pickups, okay? And around 2 o'clock this afternoon, I thought I'd pick up Matt Carpenter. Surely he's going to play tonight at Colorado against a pitiful right-handed pitcher. But I held back. I used restraint. And thank goodness I did. Because I'd be stuck with making a fantasy move. I only have 2 moves left. It's playoff week, I only have 2 moves left. That would be 1 move, and I would have wasted it. Something of note, if you look at the lineup, I'll get to it in a minute. I did skip over the Dodger-Oriole lineup because it's not really playoff relevant. But something I think is possibly relevant is the fact that the Orioles are throwing a left-hander tonight, and Jock Peterson is the designated hitter for the Dodgers. Now, there's been some talk in the chat room all week, and here we go. We'll prove it. We'll prove why, or somebody else is wrong. But there was a question asked in the chat room, I think it was yesterday when I was going on the air, why doesn't Peterson play all the time? And there was a response back, which is something I would have said, because it's true. Look at his splits. His splits against left-handers, he hits about 150. Okay? And let me pause. I know Tommy Edmonds hitting great, but can't they put Carpenter somewhere? He can play first, he can play third. And I'm looking at the lineup. Let's just look at the lineup together, shall we? Because I've got a solution to my problem. I go down to St. Louis. Here we go. St. Louis, it's a 13.5 over and under. 13.5. Here's the lineup. They got Goldie at first. They got Edmund at third. Now, he can play anywhere. Edmund can. The outfield has Harrison Bader, Marcell Ozuna, Dexter Fowler, Colton Wong. I'm not a big Dexter Fowler guy. That's what I'm getting at. Okay? I like Carpenter as much or more as I like Dexter Fowler playing right field in spacious Coors Field. Now, Andrea says Jock P can be safely dropped. I like Jock P. I picked him up. I think he can hit against Baltimore. They got right-handers going after today. I was surprised he's starting today. Look at the Dodger order. They got Pollock, Freese. Not surprised at Freese starting. Not surprised at Potluck starting. Not surprised at Taylor starting. Potluck, Freese, and Taylor, your top three. They're all right-handed batters. The Orioles are throwing a lefty. Bellinger's fourth. Enrique Hernandez is fifth. Corey Seager sixth. Will Smith seven. But look at 8 and 9. Jock Peterson, a lefty, 8. And Gavin Lux, who's hitting 150, is batting ninth. What does this say about the Dodgers? One, is this an experiment to see how Peterson will hit against lefties? Or are the Dodgers going to go with more Peterson as we go down the stretch and less of someone else? Interesting, I thought. As we were going through the lineups, Washington's in Minnesota. And here's something for you. I know I've been bragging on the Nationals. Excuse me. I don't know where this cough came from, but I'm trying to get rid of it. I've been bragging on the Nationals since June. I've been bragging on the Nationals since before the Nationals got hot. When everybody else was selling off their players, I was talking about look out for the Nationals. Don't count them out yet. They can be a force. And look at their lineup tonight. Trey Turner, Adam Eaton, Anthony Rendon, Juan Soto, Howie Kendrick, Asdrubal Cabrera. It looks like a great lineup. They got a DH. Kendrick's DHing. Playing in Minnesota. Jose Berrios pitching for Minnesota. He has not had a good year. He has not been the ace the Twins need. Two things here, and it could work either way. I want to talk about Washington for a moment. I want to talk about Minnesota for a moment before I get into some football. Washington, have you looked at their schedule? Shall we do that? They've got a fairly tough schedule coming up. Now, I'm not saying they're going to fall out, but it could happen. Baseball's crazy, right? Yeah, I was on that Nationals train early. Chappie, I'm also on the Raiders chain. You're going to find that out in a few minutes. I'm definitely on the undefeated first place Oakland Raiders train. And I know if anybody will appreciate that, it's got to be you, Phil Chaplin. It's got to be you. Let's look at the Nationals schedule the rest of the way. Okay, here we go. As my computer downloads. Don't you hate these things, how they're so slow? I had it all queued up. It went off a few minutes ago when my internet went down, but here we go. Okay. So we got 3 at Minnesota, 3 at home with the Braves, 3 at St. Louis, then a reprieve, 3, but this at Miami, 5 with the Phillies. On the 23rd, the 24th, a doubleheader, the 25th, and the 26th, 5 with the Phillies, who are fighting for their playoff lives, and they close with 3 at home with Cleveland. Now, the Nats should be okay, but what I am saying is that's not a piece of cake schedule. Just say they go to Minnesota and they lose 3. Anibal Sanchez pitching tonight. Not the ace of the staff. Then they go to Atlanta. Then they go to St. Louis. These next 9 games are really important. I mean, they can lock it down or they could blow it. And what about the Twins? I've been talking for a week or so now about how Cleveland may be the last team out. Let's look at their schedule. You got to love the Twins' schedule, okay? After this week, they play the Nationals 3. We just talked about that. Then they go to Cleveland for 3. Okay, so those 3 this weekend in Cleveland, in my opinion, hello, legend. Lenny is in the chat room. Oh, yes. And we're talking Tribe, and we're talking Twins, and here we go. Indians this weekend. At Cleveland goes Minnesota for 3. Those are must-win games for Cleveland. And you might want to say, Arnie, there's still 2 weeks in the season after that. Surely the Indians could still come back. Yeah, they could, but they're not going to get any help. After the 15th, after this Sunday, Minnesota plays all teams in their division, and all the teams they play have less than 500 records. In fact, They play Detroit 3, okay? Here's their schedule. Next Monday, at home, 4 with the White Sox. After they leave, 3 with the White Sox. After they leave town, 4 with the Royals. Monday the 23rd off. Then they go to Detroit for 3, and then they close the season with 3 in Kansas City. So after their Indian series this weekend, the Twins have 13 games to go, and all 13 are against teams that absolutely stink up the joint. So while we're talking about it, why don't we look at Cleveland and see what their schedule looks like the rest of the way? Is it in any way comparable, or how does it contrast with the Twins? Well, here you go. It's not as favorable. After the Twins series, they do go home to play the Tigers for 3. Gotta love that. Anytime you play the Tigers, you gotta love that. But then they play the Phillies for 3. And then they finish the season on the road, does Cleveland, at Chicago White Sox, and they finish with 3 at the Washington Nationals, which is why I've been saying I like Tampa, I like Oakland, I like bread and butter, I like toast and jam, but I don't like the Cleveland Indians making the playoffs this year. Now, that's just me. You may disagree, but that's why we have fantasy chat radio, right? So we can talk about it. And then you look at the players. We talked about hot hitters this morning. I'm not going to recover that material again. But when you're playing Detroit's and you're playing Chicago's and you're playing Kansas City's, you want those players who are batting against those pitchers on your fantasy team. So if there are Twins out there, go get them. I don't know that there are. Or if your team is loaded with Twins, lucky you. How about Mitch Garver? Is Mitch Garver available? Now, Mitch Garver doesn't play all the time, but we know he's got 28 homers. And we know he's going to play some not so average pitching the last 2 weeks of the season. If I can pick up Mitch Garver in fantasy to be my catcher, I don't really care that he plays 2 out of 3 days, because the 2 out of 3 days that he plays, he's going to be so productive. That's right. So keep your eye on that. Let's talk a little fantasy football. Can we? Shall we? How many of you yesterday... Did you watch those games last night, first of all? The New Orleans, Texas game. Was that not an incredible game? Did you not think Houston had it won? But they didn't. Both teams score in the last minute of the game, and it became apparent to me a few things. Number one, New Orleans. They're looking for 2 players. They're looking for number 13, their wide receiver, and number 41, their running back. And that's it. And if they can get the ball in those hands, they're going to be a threat. Look at some of the players over the weekend, if you will. And we'll talk about that game first. Deshaun Watson on the losing team. 3 touchdown passes, 1 rushing touchdown, 268 yards. Incredible. DeAndre Hopkins, 2 touchdowns for Texas. 111 yards on 8 receptions. If you're in a PPR league, he's like Zeus of wide receivers. And then we look at Drew Brees, 370 yards. 2 touchdowns, 32 completions. But these guys I'm calling out, they're not even the tops of the week. Listen to these. How many of you guys, Sammy Watkins for Kansas City? Are you kidding me? You know, you find out before the game they're without their number 1 receiver, broken collarbone. He's out for, I don't know how long. So here comes Sammy Watkins, the Clemson graduate, 198 total receiving yards on 9 receptions, 3 touchdowns, and in the Yahoo League I play in, that's 42 stinking points. Stinking points because I don't have him on my team. Christian McCaffrey, 128 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, 81 receiving yards. I'm in a league with Phil Chaplin. And Chappie, I lost this week, as I saw you did too. But if I had only started, check out, okay, here are my 3 running backs in that league. Austin Eckler and 2 other bums. No, I'm kidding. Not 2 other bums. I've got some really good players, okay? But not so much this week. Who have I got? Well, I'm almost embarrassed to say because I didn't start Eckler. I only lost by 11 points. Eckler in my ESPN league, he only got like 38 points. I started James Conner for Pittsburgh, and I started Ezekiel Elliott. And I only have 2 running backs. I can't use a running back at a flex. And so I'm crying almost. I keep Eckler on the bench with his 38 points. Meanwhile, James Conner scores 8 on 21 yards rushing. Oh, the perils of coaching a fantasy team. Eckler had 3 touchdowns in the overtime win against Indianapolis on Sunday. Don't you know? Don't you know? And how about Big Ben? How many of us own Big Ben in fantasy football? Big Ben had 276 yards, no touchdowns, an INT. Pittsburgh only scores 3 points. Big Ben. I think his middle name is Ben. I think his first name is Has. If he continues to play like this week, or week 1, that's his name. His first name is Has, his middle name is Ben, and his last name is Roethlisberger. Because that's what he looked like on Sunday night at New England. And it's like the Patriots have the Steelers' number. It's almost like, okay, you're in Foxborough, so leave your talent at the door. Don't bring it on the field. Oh my gosh. I could go on, but I'll stop. And I'll turn my attention to another bust this week. Mr. Goff. LA Ram Super Bowl runner-up. 186 yards, a touchdown and an INT in a game that many were saying would be a high-scoring up and down the field. And Goff choked on the big one. Oh my gosh. So who looked good? How about John Ross III? Is he related to any of that group on the Dallas show that came on in the 70s and 80s? John Ross? It just sounds familiar. Anyway, whether he is or not, 158 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, 7 receptions. The Bengals are going to throw the football, okay, because they're going to be behind almost every week. They're without their number 1 receiver to begin the year, A.J. Green. Didn't play at all Sunday. He had a walking boot earlier in the week. He tore ligaments early in training camp. It's up to wonder what he's going to do in week 2. We do know Tyler Boyd is the number 1 receiver, supposedly. That means he's going to draw number 1 coverage. And John Ross is their number 2, not drawing number 1 coverage. And he made it count on Sunday. I think John Ross, as long as A.J. Green is out, is fantasy gold. I think Deshaun Jackson could be fool's gold. He had a big game Sunday, 154 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns on 8 receptions in Philadelphia's come-from-behind win against the Redskins. But haven't you heard this record play before? Haven't you seen this rerun before as well? Deshaun Jackson will have a huge game only to come back and lay an egg the week later. Take your chances. I'm not with Deshaun Jackson. Quarterback-wise, I've already talked about Mr. H.B. Roethlisberger. Matt Stafford had a big week in the overtime tie with the Cardinals. 387 yards passing, 27 completions, 3 touchdowns. Case Keenum looked like, I don't know, he looked really good. Where'd that come from? 380 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 30 completions. If you're in a league where completions are awarded, Case Keenum's your man. They play Dallas Sunday. You figure they're going to be behind again. He's going to have to throw the football. And did you see where Darius Geis is out for who knows how long? Hurt his other leg Sunday. His other knee. He had surgically repaired knee last year. It's his other knee this year. And there is no definitive timeline when he'll return from the meniscus injury he suffered in the Week 1 loss to the Eagles. Now, there's some who say he could make it back for Week 3 against the Bears. Oh boy, that would be a fun day to come back from an injury. So what do the Redskins do? Well, they activate the formerly inactive and they call up Peterson. Adrian Peterson. He's got to be 41. And he's starting Sunday against Dallas. I don't think he's as big a play as Thompson will be, the third down pass catching back. I like Thompson. If you're going to drop guys, you're going to pick up a player, I'd go with Thompson because I think Thompson's there all year no matter what happens. He's going to catch passes out of that backfield. He's going to get you points in PPR and half-point PPR leagues. And for that reason, give me some of that. How about another quarterback? How about Patrick Mahomes, Mr. MVP? Only 378 yards passing, only 3 touchdowns, only 25 completions. Ho-hum, another day. Mr. Brady, 24 completions, 341 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And what does he do? He gets Antonio Brown this week to go with the cast of thousands he already has. And how many of you think that the Antonio Brown saga is more than just a saga, and you're like me, and I'm a Raider fan, okay, but I think it was a setup the whole time. I think New England and Antonio Brown were in cahoots. It was staged. He was going to get out of Oakland, and he was going to go really at only a cost of money to New England. Remember, Oakland traded for him. They had to give up draft picks. New England did not have to do that. All they had to do was sign him. And they did. Now, Belichick says today, I don't know if he's going to play Sunday or not. Oh, come on, Bill. Antonio Brown's going to dress out Sunday. They're playing the Dolphins. And now the Patriots are prime time ready to repeat once again as Super Bowl champs. And how many of you think that you might see Gronkowski back sooner than later? Gronkowski estimates it will take him about a month to get back into football shape. This was quoted last week, so now we're 3 weeks away if that's the case. Gronk said he was confident he could play in a game today. He only weighs 245. His playing weight is around 260. But based on everything I've read, Gronk does not sound like someone who will be retired much longer. That's a position, if there is one, where the Patriots are not deep. And if you could just imagine adding Gronkowski to that Patriot receiving core and offense. Oh, I don't like the Patriots. But the Raider game last night. How many of you guys watched the Raider game last night and saw the 3-time Super Bowl champs, and should be 4, but for a bad call in the snow in Foxborough in 2001, but we won't talk about that, saw the Super Bowl champs 3-time come out and put it to the Broncos in grand style. This week, the AFC West division lead is up for grabs because the first place tied Oakland Raiders take on the first place tie Kansas City Chiefs at the Black Hole into Oakland. I wonder how many the Raiders are favored by in that one. Jacobs, rookie running back out of Alabama, he looked like a horse last night. He looked like a player who can really do it. Phil Chaplin, Rottenberger, love it. Ben will be fine, I hope so. But you're right. Dante Moncrief, it was like, okay, we're playing on planet Earth, and Moncrief was on planet Neptune. He wasn't even the next planet over. He wasn't running routes correctly. And so I wonder, Pittsburgh, I'm not a Steelers fan. I know some of you are. Pittsburgh, they have let Antonio Brown go, understand. They've let Le'Veon Bell go, understand. But they've let go of two extreme talented players. They're without both of those. I've told you, Connor got 21 yards rushing. 21? Are you kidding me? And Dante Moncrief doesn't know how to run routes. Teams are going to double up on Smith-Schuster until somebody steps up other than Smith-Schuster from a receiving standpoint. And I read a lot about the Steelers' tight ends. I didn't see a lot of production there. So we'll see. How will the Steelers respond this week? Will they come back with a passion? Are they a 9-7 team? Are they 11-5? Are they 12-4? This coming week is huge for the Steelers. Yeah, Chappie, I got you on tight ends had to block, but that didn't work so well either. I mean, the Patriots, it was game one. I never knew that the Patriots had such a great rushing defense until they played the Steelers Sunday night. Maybe 5-11. I don't think so. But, the thing about the NFL is you'll get a team that you don't think is going to do well, and they will. And you get a team that thinks is going to do well, and they won't. More so probably than any other sport, right? It just happens that way. So who are free agents in your league that are worthy of picking up fantasy football this week? And it all depends on what league you're in. Okay, I'm in 2 leagues. Let me tell you. Let's talk about the most complicated one first, if I can. I'm in a 14-team league. 17 draft picks. 14 teams. What does that mean? That means there's no meat left on the bone. That's what it means. And so I'm scrolling through, looking at players in my fantasy league with 14 teams, and lo and behold, guess who is there? Andrea, you're right. I pick up McLaurin for the Redskins. What about Amendola? What about Chark? What about Peterson? I like Amendola. I think he's a sneaky pick. I like Amendola probably better than Chark. I put Chark and McLaurin kind of the same category. Tremendous upside, but you could have a week where they get 2 catches, right? Amendola is sort of that safety receiver, that slot guy that's going to pick up a lot of Stafford passes when he's throwing short, and that'll be often. So chat room, it's picking up volume. It's picking up steam. Who do you like better? Do you like Chark? Do you like McLaurin? at that wide receiver position. This is my 14-team league, guys, and I need some help. Here's another choice. You think Amendola equals Crowder. Well, if Amendola equals Crowder, then Amendola is the pick, don't you think? Minshew likes Chark. I picked him up. I get 4 moves a week. I've used one. Andrea says McLaurin sucks week 2 against Dallas. So somebody ranked it Amendola, McLaurin, and then Chark. Is the consensus chat room we like Amendola better than all the other 2? And if it is, just type in Amendola and we'll move on. But here's even a stickier point. Running back. Oh my gosh. 14-team league. Tune in on Thursday a.m. Running back in a 14-team league. Let me tell you what's out there, okay? Samuels for Pittsburgh, top of the list. Darren Sproles. Ballage for Miami. I hate Miami running backs. Their offensive line is pitiful. Gus the Bus Edwards. Agumbale in Tampa. Madison in Minnesota. Do you get my drift? This is where it's going. So let's read those again. Samuels for Pittsburgh. Sproles for Philadelphia. Ballage for Miami. Gus the Bus Edwards in Baltimore. Ogunbowale in Tampa, their third down back. And Madison in Minnesota. That's about as good as it gets in my 14-team league at the running back position. I was offered a trade this afternoon. Justice Hill, long gone in my 14-team league, Chappie. Long gone. I gave you the best of the best right there. And so when I say in this 14-team league, there's no meat on the bone, there's no meat on the bone. And we can talk about Justice Hill, but in that league, I'm wasting my breath. So in that group, you like Madison because he's the backup, and you know that there are injury risks going on with Dalvin Cook. I assume that's my rationale. I like Madison too for that reason. Because if Dalvin Cook goes down, Madison becomes the man in Minnesota. And tell me a season where Dalvin Cook has played the full season. If you can, your memory's better than mine. And mine's pretty good. But I don't recall Dal Cook playing a complete season. In fact, I rarely remember Dal Cook playing more than 4 or 5 games without getting injured. And Minnesota's offensive line is good. And they're going to win. And can you imagine when Diggs gets healthy? He's going to be the main man in that receiving corps for Minnesota. Write it down. The OC, he loves Diggs. His style is Diggs' style. Let's talk about another league. A 10-team league I'm in. Here's some of the options at running back position. Adrian Peterson and Chris Thompson from the Redskins, both available. Ronald Jones, Tampa Bay, available. See, it's already sounding better, isn't it? Justin Jackson, LA Chargers, available. Giovanni Bernard, Cincinnati. And, of course, that could depend on Mixon and his ankle. Mostert for San Francisco. How about Jamal Williams for Green Bay? And the list goes on. And some of the same players I've already mentioned. Peterson's the choice. Peterson's going to get the carries this week. Now, against the Dallas defense, you know, Peterson can catch the ball as well. He's getting some age on him, but he's going to get the opportunity this week. And against Dallas, and Dallas played good, but they were playing the Giants. Oh, come on. The Giants? Are you kidding me? Anybody could look good against that Giant defense, don't you think? So here's a trade I was offered this afternoon. Let's go through the series. First of all, I received this text that says, let me find it here. You'll like it. Chat room, you're going to love this. I like to give you real stuff. He sends me a text. He says, I've got too many running backs. It's going to be a problem for me wondering who to start. Remember I said I had James Conner. I have, who's the guy in Dallas? Zeke Elliott. That's right, Zeke Elliott. And I have the guy in San Diego, Eckler. And also on the bench, I have, that's enough. Those three. And he wants one of those three. Okay, so he wants Elliott, Eckler, or Connor, and he goes for Connor. Let's see, Peterson. Okay, I love it. So Peterson can kick some rear. I like that. But here's what he says. I got too many running backs. It's going to be hard for me to start them all. Now remember, there's a bye week, so I'm not really worried about having three of the guys. And he wants to trade for one of those. He offers me Brandon Cooks for James Conner. I look at his roster. I respond, Smith-Schuster for James Conner. The comeback, his price tag's a little higher. I say Cooks is too boom or bust for me. I want a consistent number one for Connor. Then he offers me 2 for 2. Juju Schuster and Breida for Connor and Diggs. My response, can't. He wants a counter. How many of you think I'm being serious? Connor for Juju, fair or unfair? I think Zeke is too much to give up for Juju. Eckler for Juju. Those are my 3 running backs, and if he wants one, remember, he initiated this conversation. I didn't go looking to trade a running back. He went looking to get one of my running backs. And to give him up, I want Juju Smith-Schuster. So would you trade any of those running backs? Eckler, Pittsburgh or Dallas' main back, for Juju Smith-Schuster? Just something to think about. I love talking real deal. I mean, we can talk talented players, but what makes it interesting to me is if I know the players available in your league, how many teams are in your league, and who would you drop to pick up a player? And for me to do that, I want some upside. So here's you an upside player. Tell me what you think. Chat room, are you ready? Because I need to know what you think of Mike Davis for Chicago. Rank him 1 to 10. 1 being he totally stinks. 10 meaning I gotta have him. Mike Davis. Here's another one. And this one's interesting. Mecole Hardman for Kansas City. Did you know with Tyreek Hill, now he's going to miss multiple weeks. And did you know that Mecole Hardman played on 77% of the snaps yesterday? Now, he didn't get a catch. 2 on Davis. I was going to say 2 or a 3 on Davis. 7 on Hardman. I love it. I love Hardman. I love a Kansas City receiver. And now he becomes the number 2 receiver lined up across field from Sammy Watkins. And they're playing the vaunted Raider secondary. So let's go back. Mecole Hardman, Amendola, McLaurin, or Chark. Rank them for me. Chark, McLaurin, Amendola, and Hardman. Rank those. I'd rather have who's number 1, who's number 2, who's number 3, who's number 4. My ranking would be this. And I'm looking up, so I'm going to take Hardman number 1, Amendola number 2, and those other 2 fall in line. And I think it's close between Amendola and Hardman, only because Hardman has upside playing with Kansas City. Amendola is going to get consistent throws in Detroit. I like both of them better than Chark or McLaurin. I'll look in the chat room in just a moment. So I could call Amendola, Hardman a tie. I'm going to take 2 of the 4. It doesn't matter 1 and 2 there. But I'm going to take Amendola, Hardman, or Hardman, Amendola. And I'm going to put those guys ahead of Chark and McLaurin. And I bring up Chark and McLaurin because Chark went 4 catches, 146 and a touchdown. McLaurin went 5 catches, 125 and a touchdown. And could have had another 73-yard touchdown, but Case Keenum underthrew him. He could have walked in. He could have crawled in. He's that fast. I like McLaurin more than Chark. That's where I'm going with this one. I tell you what, it's 10 till 7 my time. I don't know about your time. But I know Phil Chaplin, he's probably going to continue some of this talk or even come up with stuff, I'm sure, I haven't even thought of at 7 o'clock. Chappie, are you ready to go on air? Because if you are, I can go at any time. I do want to talk about a tight end or two real quick. If you're ready, tell me. I think it'd be really cool if you could just come right in as soon as I end. You know what I mean? Because we're not doing our 9 o'clock tonight. Chappie and I, we can't do the show at 9. So if you can follow me right up, Chappie, let me know, because I know you're in the chat room. I want to talk about a tight end or two real quick. And tight end is such an interesting position, right? Because, it's sort of boom or bust. I was looking at players yesterday, tight ends. I love the kid in Detroit. I love their tight end. Do you? He's on my watch list. I like him better than Gronk, okay? And I'm going to give you some numbers here. Just give me a sec. Give me just a second. If I can get to him. Hold on. You ever have this trouble? Nobody has this trouble but me. But I have it all the time. Hawkinson's stats yesterday. Here you go. 6 receptions, 131 yards, and a touchdown. To me, he's got a lot of upside playing in that Detroit. I think Stafford's going to have a big year. And I think he loves to throw short passes. Amendola and Hawkinson are the recipients of that. A great tight end to own. I'll tell you another tight end I like owning. Darren Waller for Oakland. If you think about the tight ends last year for Oakland and how Derek Carr basically made Jared Cook an all-pro player because he threw to him so often. And the same thing's going to happen this year with their current tight end. They're going to utilize the tight end position. Now, I know yesterday, wide receiver Haven in Oakland. But Waller caught 7 for 70 yesterday. And those are two guys that may or may not have been drafted in leagues. Well, maybe they should be paid attention to now, before it's too late. What about a player like Njoku? Off day yesterday. Burton for Chicago didn't play yesterday. Jordan Reed concussed yesterday. Excuse me. That's why I go back to Waller. I go back to Hawkinson. I think those two are waiver wire adds this week in fantasy. So there you go. We've covered a lot of ground. We've talked about trades. I've enjoyed the show. We talked some baseball. We talked some football. It's a buffet on Tuesday night. Phil Chaplin's up next. Chappie, play ball. Go get him, buddy. I'll be listening. But for now, this is Arnie on Arnie's Fantasy World of Sports. Good night, everybody.